Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching, publishing, executive ghostwriting, and podcast production services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Nancy Dodd, author of The Writer's Compass. Nancy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here with you.
Are you ready to get started?
Yes.
All right. Question number 1. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
So the first and most important thing I have found in talking to successful writers is discipline. You have to write. If you want to be a writer, you have to write every single day or equivalent to that. And what I mean is you have to have a regular time that you're writing. If for some reason you can't write every day, then you need a regular 5-day schedule or one long day every week, something that's disciplined and regular so that you are working on your craft constantly and learning to improve it.
And what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
I think finding a publisher or an agent who gets you, who is excited about what you're working on, who feels like they see your vision and they can share your vision with the world. But bigger than that is they have to believe they can sell your work. They have to believe there's an audience out there who will buy your work. So even if you have a great vision and they love your vision, if they don't believe they can sell it, then you're still not going to find a publisher or an agent.
And in regards to your journey, did you use a traditional publisher or did you publish your book yourself?
I used a traditional publisher and an agent.
Use the publisher and agent. Excellent. If you don't mind me asking, which publisher did you go with?
The Writer's Digest publisher. So I'm editor of a journal, and an agent called me about one of her authors who had written an article for the journal, and we got to talking, and I looked her up, and it turns out she works with Writer's Digest, and she handles some writing books. And so I told her I had an idea for a writing book. I have 2 master's degrees in writing, and I've been studying writing for a long time. And she liked the idea. She said, send me, proposal. And I sent a proposal, and she submitted it to Writer's Digest. And at the time, they were going through a transition from one publishing editor to another one. So it took a little bit longer than usual, but they did accept the book and published it.
Well, this will tie in perfectly to our next question, and that is in regards to marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that worked well.
Well, because my book is specifically for authors and for creativity, my niche or the audience I'm looking for are writers. And so one of the things I did was a lot of writing workshops. I went to a lot of conferences. I emailed conference organizers and offered to give a talk or a workshop, and I did a lot of that without pay because that was my audience. And so it helped to spread the word about my book. The other thing I did was, because my book is on the creative writing process, I emailed a lot of professors at community colleges and universities who teach creative writing and introduced the topic of my book to them and encouraged them to look at it and adopt it for their classes.
Did you also go to those classes and do talks as well?
Well, not so much. Not that I wasn't willing to, but I was submitting this all over the country, and so travel was a little bit prohibitive.
So what you're doing was you were reaching out to different professors at universities who taught creative writing, and then you asked them to consider using your book as kind of like as a textbook or as like an extra resource with those courses.
Well, both actually.
Nice. And what were the
So one of
results
the
with
things
that?
that, well, fairly good. I just came back from Canada where I worked with a group of producers and writers as sort of as a screenwriting coach and a mentor for 5.5 days. I met with a small group of women individually, and they all had my book and were reading it and referring to it and taking it back to their companies and using it. So just getting your name out there as an authority on your topic is is huge. And if you're writing fiction, if you can find a tie-in, something about your fiction. For example, there are people who write murder mysteries or other kinds of stories where they use recipes. They incorporate recipes. So it'll be like someone who has a bakery or someone who has a restaurant, and maybe it's a mystery or some other kind of story. And so throughout their book will be recipes. So they have a whole audience that reads their books because they love recipes. So if you can find a tie-in to something from whatever you're writing about, that's a niche you can go out and promote your book to.
So it also sounds like not only did you reach out to universities, were you reaching out to different companies as well for a corporate business? What was your strategy with that?
Well, the next book, I have a publisher that's asked me to write another book on business storytelling. So I'm sort of going into that area now where I'm doing more on the business side of storytelling and how to promote story in your company and in your sales and marketing and in just better management of your company.
And is this storytelling mainly going to be for executives in the companies to do their books?
Not to write books, but to better communicate about their company, within their company, internally and externally. Storytelling in business is a really big topic right now. And a lot of executives are looking for ways to better present their companies, better tell the stories of their companies, but they don't know how.
Yeah, one of the books I read recently was about story branding by Donald Miller. And it's just amazing the difference that can make with a company. I know they were using Apple as an example with how they have
Mm-hmm.
mastered storytelling. And that's the biggest thing is just it's getting the story out there. It doesn't have to be a sales pitch or anything like that. You're just telling your story, and that's what's going to relate to people. It's the same way with the books. You got to be able to connect with people.
Exactly. And there needs to be a level of authenticity in it, both in your own storytelling, in fiction or nonfiction, and in business storytelling. There needs to be, I also teach presentations and storytelling class at the business school. And that's one of the main things I teach is being authentic in your storytelling and not just making up a good story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you completely on that. Well, let's talk about your favorite book. So, what is your favorite book, and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
So that is much more difficult because I love books and stories, and a lot of times I sometimes like authors and their series more than a particular book. My favorite book, though, I will be honest, my favorite book is the Bible. And in the Bible, there's poetry, there's romance, there's history, there's action adventure, there's every genre in the Bible. There's, if you go to Revelations, I mean, I'm not calling it science fiction, but you could certainly see that as a venue of something fantastical. So there's everything. And then there's a lot of lessons learned. There's a lot of value. There's a lot of, I get a lot of value for myself and how to treat others. So overall, that's my favorite book. But I I love, probably my favorite genre is action adventure.
And for a final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
Again, that is really hard because I have a collection of quotes. And whenever I find a quote I like, I put it in this file that I call Messages of Persistence. And it's, I don't know, 500 quotes or pieces of emails that have inspired me. It's anything that inspires me. So there is one quote that did come to mind. It's a little bit negative, from Mrs. Doubtfire, which really had a profound impact on my life. And when Sally Field tells Robin Williams, I don't like who I am when I'm with you, that had a really profound impact on me. It's not a particularly positive quote, but I think it says a lot about who we are as people and how we put on faces for other people. And then recently I found several quotes by Alan Alda on creativity that I love.
Would you like to share one of those quotes? I love Alan Alda.
Sure. So here's one. If you know what you're looking for, that's all you'll get, what's previously known. But when you're open to what's possible, you get something new. That's creativity.
That is one of my favorite quotes. Well, Nancy, I want to thank you for being a guest on this show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
Well, I have a website called thewriterscompass.com, and I have another one at nancyellendodd.com. And if you want to email me, it's nancyellendodd@gmail.com.
Nancy, I want to thank you once again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Well, thank you very much, and I enjoyed speaking with you.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how you can be featured in our brand new Get Published business book, go to getpublishedpodcast.com.